What's good, peeps? Today we're going to be creating this round canvas and snake painting. Stay tuned to find out how I completed this project. So to start this project off, what I have to do is find the center point of this board. What I'm going to be doing is splitting this board into 8 different sections. And so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to find my center point, mark that down the center. We are going to be ending up cutting this in half later, but then I'm going to find the center point for the length of the actual board so that I can find that center point of half of one of my boards. We need the center point because that is where we're going to start our circle so that it's directly in the middle of both of our boards. And now what we're going to do is cut down our center point so that we have 2 matching halves. This doesn't have to be perfect or anything because we're going to be cutting out our circle anyway, but this is just going to help me so that I can end up sandwiching our boards together so that I have 2 perfect circles that are exactly the same width. So now that I have that center point, I have to drill a hole in the dead center, and we're going to be bringing out some pretty old school technology here. Essentially, what I'm going to be doing is feeding that string through, flipping it over, and then I'm going to drill a hole through this scrap piece of wood here so that it can actually create some tension. Then I flip my board over and then cut some of that excess string off. And so basically what I'm going to do is tie my string to a pencil so that when I pull and start to draw, it will actually create that perfect circle. And so this is going to be almost exact, and I'm just going to go around a couple of times to make sure that I really do have that outline perfect. Then what we're going to do is clamp these 2 boards together because we are going to want 2 matching circles. And so what I'm going to do is clamp all of the outsides with this, and I kind of figured out a system like what I did with my organic shape painting where it'll actually make that board raised, and so I can come in with my jigsaw and cut around that circle, and so I can move my clamps as I'm going. And so this is going to give me that perfect double circle that I need so that once I put these together, everything is going to match up and everything's going to look perfect and seamless. And now I've got to remove my clamps for the inevitable part, which is always the worst, which is sanding down the sides. So because this is just some cheap plywood, it actually kind of frays on the edges. And so I need that to be extremely smooth because even though we're going over this with fabric, I really want that to be a nice clean edge so that I don't have any bumps or anything that looks wonky. Now that we've got everything sanded down, it's time to start focusing on the inside braces. Basically what I want is something that is going to make these not move and flex because I don't want my fabric or anything over the top of this with my nice paint and all the time that I'm putting in for that painting itself to move around and be able to flake. So this is actually going to be that kind of structural support that I'm going to need for this to be completely rock solid. So I'm going to come in with my Gorilla Glue and start to really kind of lather that on. This is really nice because this stuff expands and then contracts so that it really holds everything in place. And so I'm going to be doing this on both sides to really ensure that those 2 pieces are well adhered together. Then I can come in and start to kind of create that circle sandwich. So basically what I'm going to do is put those on top of each other and clamp everything down. And so when that is all said and done, I have to wait 24 hours for this to fully cure.
The next day.
And now that everything is all dried up, I can take off my clamps so that I can then prepare my wood to be wrapped in this muslin fabric. So what I'm going to do is cut it to size, making sure that each side has enough that I can actually pull it around. More is always better in this case because I can always cut stuff off. I cannot add back to this fabric. So now what I'm going to do is take my air compressed staple gun and tack in one side, and then I'm just going to go around to each corner. And so what I'm doing here is I'm pulling tight until my fingers basically fall off so that once we actually get everything together, it will all mesh into one piece. So these sides will kind of look like it's a part of the actual front of this canvas. What we want is an extremely tight and flat surface to be able to paint onto. Now we're going to cut off our excess fabric, leaving about 1/4 of an inch, and later we're going to be kind of painting all of these down and then putting a thing of felt on the back, because I'm a big believer in the back looking just as good as the front, and so this will all be kind of concealed in the end, and so we won't have any of this excess fabric, and we won't have those awkward edges showing. And now I'm going to be putting my gesso onto my canvas, and so gesso is just an extremely thick primer, which will give you an extremely nice base, and any of those puckers that we have on the sides will start to kind of shrink up and completely be eliminated after this dries. And so this is going to give us a really nice surface to paint onto, and this will actually save a lot of paint when I am using my more expensive paints in the end, because it'll start to fill in that nap in the fabric, and then it'll give me a nice base to paint onto. Now, if you like abstract art, we can stop here. No, I'm just kidding. But basically, this is going to give me a great base to be able to draw, paint, do anything I need to accomplish my vision that I have. So I start with a sketch here, and basically just mapping out where my snakes are going to go and everything, so that once I get to the actual painting part, it'll make my life a lot easier when I have to go and fill in all of this detail. So when I'm filling in this detail, I really want this to be photorealistic. So as I'm painting, I'm remembering that as those scales wrap around the snake, they 1, get smaller, and 2, get darker as they wrap around, because I'm trying to think as I'm going where the light is going to hit these snakes, so that they kind of look a little bit shiny and like they're really popping out of that canvas that you'll see later. I'm going to be making shadows behind this so that it looks like there's kind of an inset canvas. And with that being said and done, basically I'm just going to forward up this video here so that you can see the magic happen. And now that I've got the majority of the scales done, I haven't finished the faces on the snakes, don't worry, I know they look very bare right now, but I'm going to start to paint in this background. So I want this to be extremely realistic. I'm really paying attention to where the light would be casting a shadow on this back panel here, and then I'm going to fill in this background with a very nice turquoise kind of green. It's extremely dark, so it'll actually make those snakes pop out, making it look even more realistic, and it'll just finish off the edges of this painting. And now, knowing that the snakes are kind of shiny and wet, what I'm going to do is start to fill in a reflective shadow in purple to add an extra color in, and then I can start on my faces to add a little bit of life into these, and then I can move on to the back of the painting. Now that that painting is complete, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm a huge believer in the back of the painting looking just as good as the front. So what I'm going to do here is start to paint this in black. I'm going to be putting felt on the back of this to cover up the wood, and so that will protect the wall when you're going to hang this painting from any nicks or scratches. And so what I'm going to do is start to paint all of this in black, and I'm going to actually start to paint that canvas fabric down, painting underneath the fabric first, and then kind of smushing it down with a top layer so that we have a very flat surface to be able to glue our black felt to. Now, similar to my organic shape painting, I can come in and trace the outside, and then I'm just going to cut that out with my fabric scissors and make it a little bit smaller so that my edges don't show from the front. And I'll take that remnant piece to protect the face of the painting here, and I'll just put that face down so that I can start to adhere that felt to the back of this painting. And yes, it is just as easy as hot gluing this down. You'd be surprised at how effective hot glue is at actually adhering things together, and when you look at production pieces, they also use hot glue, so this will last basically forever. Now I just need to attach my wire to the back, and so I don't have my drill here unfortunately, but I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm just going to do this by hand, and so I don't want to screw these in all the way because I need something to be able to wrap my wire around, but basically I'm going to get my wire, I'm going to cut that down to size, and then I'm going to wrap that counterclockwise so that when I tighten my screw clockwise, it'll actually adhere that down and to the board. And after trimming that down to size and pushing that wire into the board, we can call this project complete.